Hey everyone, Brandon Kaiser here, founder and CEO of Biggest Fan Consulting, where all we do is grow student sections. And in this video, I'm going to give you this proven 3-step process to not only grow, but to build and scale student sections where it becomes a self-sustaining, well-oiled machine that recruits incoming freshmen and it spits out proud alumni when students graduate. And so what I see around the industry is student sections are often viewed as let's just try and buy our students, or let's just try and give away free pizza, free t-shirts, when in reality, student sections are like businesses. They need to be built. There needs to be strategy. There needs to be the right people in place. And then when those people graduate or leave, there needs to be a system in place to ensure that the student section continues to grow regardless of who's in place. So this concept is actually fairly quite simple. It's not rocket science, but it is a lot of work, and I see a lot of schools who do not have this system in place. So if you're looking to improve your student section, you're looking to grow your student section, you're looking to build a student section, then this really is the proven 3-step process. So there's a couple different components and layers. The first step is to hire student leaders. Student leaders are the most important component to a student section at the high school and the college level, because student behavior is a product of culture. Students go to games or don't go to games based on the culture. And culture is built by people. And the only people who can build a student culture are student leaders. So student leaders need to operate the student section. Not me, not athletics marketing, not the athletic director, not the basketball coach, no free giveaway or promo, not some student club. It has to be built and operated by student leaders. Then you need to hire them, which means you need to pay them. They need to be compensated, because you don't work for free. I don't work for free. So just like your school probably pays student leaders to work in the bookstore or to swipe meal cards, why wouldn't you pay student leaders, who are the face and the voice of the students, creating this revenue generating machine that is so valuable to your campus? I hear all the time that the student section is the lifeblood of any institution. Well, if your student leaders are building this culture and operating this culture and this system and this machine, then they should be compensated. Yes, we want to attract the leaders who would do this for free because they're passionate about the student section and athletics. But without compensation, there's no accountability and there's no reward or incentive for all their hard work. And then they're going to go find a job at Starbucks, or they're going to be a bartender, they're going to go get an internship because they're not getting paid from all the hard work that they're putting in to the student section. So step number 1, hire student leaders. Step number 2, empower those leaders, give them resources, and let them run the show. So it's one step to bring on student leaders. It's another thing, this is the hardest, probably the hardest concept for people to not just grasp, but to implement, is relinquishing that control. The student section is about the students. It's not about you, it's not about me. It's about the students. And so if it's operated by student leaders, they need to be empowered. They need to be given, what does empower mean? They need to be given the authority and the power to come up with ideas, to execute ideas, and to really be the voice of what's happening in the student section. They should be supported, given resources if they want to do an idea. And the biggest thing is let them run the show. College students are capable. I built the GCU Havocs. The biggest party in college basketball is a 19 to 22-year-old. All the other top student sections are all run by students. So they're plenty capable. They're extremely hardworking. You should be bringing on your most charismatic, dynamic, responsible leaders. So, they're many future leaders. They're future entrepreneurs. They're future business owners. Future marketing executives. Again, these are capable students. So they need to be given the power and authority to create plans. They need to be given the resources to execute those plans, and they need to be allowed to run the show. It's all about them. It's not about you. It's not about me. So if all you do is steps 1 and 2, you're going to have a better student section a year from now than probably what you're doing right now. So go hire student leaders, empower them, give them resources, let them run the show. Now, the third step in this proven process is how you really take things to the next level and build a culture in an in-game atmosphere that's nationally recognized. And this does involve more athletics, and it does involve more of a top-down approach, but again, it's part of this proven 3-step process. All right, 3, make the in-game experience all about the student section. A lot of arenas, a lot of teams have really done a great job of innovating the pregame intros, and they have all the bells and whistles. And then the game happens, and it's like back to the 1980s. It's just a game. There's the traditional on-court promotions. There's PA reads. None of that engages students these days. So what we did at GCU and what we're seeing, there's a shift in the industry where the whole atmosphere in-game experience has to be about what the students want in the student section. Because the student section is the lifeblood. The student section, if done properly, is that tide that raises all boats from the in-game entertainment, because it drives season ticket sales, alumni. They want to see students having fun. Coaches and athletes love it. So here's the thing. If you make the in-game experience all about the student section, no one's going to suffer from that. Only people will benefit. The coaches will still coach, the players will still play. Everything that's taken on during the game, the basketball game or whatever sport you're talking about, is still going to happen. It's everything when the game's not taking place, pregame, timeouts, halftime. I see all across the country, no one is engineering games to make it all about the student section. It's still about the sponsors, it's still about the promotion, it's still about some idea where you have to innovate, you have to create, you have to think different and say, okay, the game's actually not about the basketball team. It's actually not a basketball game. We're creating an event for students featuring the student section where they take responsibility, they take ownership, and they're actually programmed into the game where they feel like they have to show up just as much as the players feel like they have to, come to the arena and compete. And so there's ways you can strategically make the in-game experience about the student section using pregame trigger points and different timeouts. And when you do that, you're going to build a community and a culture where students take ownership and they find their identity in participating in the basketball or in the atmosphere that you're creating, in the basketball game or the atmosphere of whatever sport you're creating. Well, how do you make the in-game experience all about the student section? Well, if you did steps 1 and 2 properly, boom, there you go. There's your market. You have student leaders who will help you execute and give you ideas. You're empowering them, giving them resources, and letting them run the show. So now all of a sudden, you're collaborating with them and with your spirit programs to say, what is the most unbelievable in-game experience we can possibly think of? Hey, leaders, what is the craziest thing you want to do during a timeout or during halftime? And then we're going to make it happen. So if you want a student section that is more like GCU, more like Gonzaga, you have to follow this proven 3-step process. I have yet to see there be any other way. Now, there are some schools who have top 5 programs, who have coaches, who are in these Power 5 schools. They get students to games. They have good attendance. They have pretty good engagement, but they're not dialed in. They don't have 100% capacity standing and engaged every single game, which is what we did at GCU. It fluctuates, and so they might have a higher ceiling and maybe even a bit of a higher floor, but it's not 100% capacity standing and engaged every game. And once you look under the hood of some of those bigger programs, now all of a sudden you see that there are no student leaders. There's no branding. They're not letting them run the show. So they're really just relying on the big brand, they're relying on other bells and whistles, they're relying on the team being good. But if you start stripping down some of those things, guaranteed the student section is going to plateau and decline. Because this is the only process, it's proven, this 3-step process, to grow a student section, to sustain and to scale a student section for years to come. You have to hire student leaders, you have to empower those leaders, give them resources, let them run the show, and then you have to make the in-game experience all about the student section. So if I can just summarize, because again, this sounds simple, but not a lot of people actually apply it. You have to think different. Many of you watching this probably looked at what other schools are doing. You've probably been taught a certain way by bosses or advisors or by industry standards. You have to think different to get different results, to create these unbelievable atmospheres that people wonder, how the heck do you do that? So some of these things, anybody that works with us, I ask like, hey, are you okay with me completely shattering your brain and possibly making you rethink everything you've ever been taught, and maybe even deconstructing some of the strategies and practices you've been taught so that we can reconstruct with this new way, so that way you can build this unbelievable atmosphere. Because at the end of the day, it's what it's all about, right? It's all about the student section. It's all about giving these students an unbelievable and unforgettable experience, making coaches and players happy, giving them a competitive advantage. And so you have to think different in order to successfully implement this 3-step process. Because it's one thing to know, it's a whole separate thing to do. So anyways, that is our proven 3-step process to grow, build, and scale student sections year after year, and to create these student sections that are cultural movements and the lifeblood of any campus, as well as to create these unique, creative, dominant in-game atmospheres. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the bell and subscribe below.